welcome back TCS viewers. It's Chris Nichols here for TCSTV, and we are out on the road in our road trip with our tour bus. Look at that, the TCS tour bus. We're that big time now. Not really. No, to be honest with you guys, we actually drove in a 2007 Pontiac Vibe today, and our budget barely covered the gas. But we're out here at the Bayou National Historic Site. This is a ranch that ran in Alberta for 70 years, over 160,000 acres. They raised Percheron horses and cattle here, and they kept it as a historic site because this is really a big part of Alberta's industry and its history. And today we're here to look at the brand new Panasonic GX85, and at least that's what we call it here in Canada. It's got so many names. I've seen GX80, GX7 Mark II. That's not confusing when it comes to Canon. But it's an exciting new camera. It's got great 4K video. It's got great image stabilization. And of course, I love the Micro Four Thirds. I shoot it myself, so I'm eager to play with this camera today, see if I really like it. And hopefully our driver back there is not too upset. I know he's been peeking around the corner there. We also decided to bring a busload of tourists with us here, so we're gonna take a lot of shots of them too while we're out here. Honestly, not really. It's not our bus, I wish. Look at that, Alberta's history, pretty rugged, pretty badass, these cowboys. This is George Lane. He was the cow boss here at Bayou back in the day, and I guess wolves were actually a real problem. He came across a whole bunch that had taken down a cow, and he went in there with a 6-shooter, and he started chasing them off. And nowadays, we're not going to find any wolves out here, really, but in case we do, I actually did bring the Leica 100-400. I'm eager to play with that today. I've also brought the 30mm macro from Panasonic and the new 12-60. It's not a fast lens, but it's a great range. It's a nice compact little lens, and I'm probably going to use that most of the day today. Guys, just looking for textures and details, and hay bales, of course, classic out here. But one thing that I'm really noticing, we've got the screen auto-adjusting its monitor brightness, and it's seamless, and it's actually really good. Like even bright sunlight directly on the camera, no problem seeing it from most angles. So, you know, Panasonic have really good technology, and I think they're kind of undersung in that regard. The autofocus as well. I mean, we've talked about the DFD system, so I'm not going to elaborate, but suffice to say, I still think it's the best mirrorless autofocusing on the planet. Like, the camera's just lightning quick. It goes exactly where you want it. There's no hunting. It's really, really nice to use. All right, guys, now when using the Panasonic autofocus, I'm noticing a few things here. Now, first off, I've talked about how fast it is. I really do love it. Nothing quicker point to point. In continuous focusing modes, Panasonics are pretty quick, and they certainly go smooth. I like that. I still think something like a Sony A6300 is going to give you the best continuous autofocus, you know, for shooting sports and journalism, but you certainly wouldn't feel out of place using this for an action sequence. It can do it. You know, modes like where you get to customize your own grid for focusing, it's really novel. You can make happy faces and stuff like that and focus with them. But otherwise, folks, you're just going to be doing single point, pushing where you want, or using the tracking autofocus. It holds on tenaciously. It works really well. The only complaint that I have, I've seen on other cameras too, we're missing now the lip around the screen. There's no sort of raised feel, so it is very easy for your fingers to slip onto the touch screen. You'll often find your autofocusing point pushed up to the top right, but it's as easy as just pushing it again wherever you want, touching your shutter, and going. And by the way, I can set this for AF on, back button focusing. I love that on a camera like this. I like that we've got that feature there. I've been playing around with the GX85, and the first thing I notice is it's got some weight to it. I don't know if they put ballast in there or what, because it's not a big body. It's very reminiscent of like a Sony a6000 in size. It makes it very throwable though. You know, it's got a nice kind of weight to it. And I think Panasonic's doing that because they want this camera to feel more quality. Now, this is very similar in a lot of ways to the space that the Panasonic G7 filled. Jordan wants me to call it the G7 sister camera, but what does he know? But in a lot of ways, they're filling the same spot, the same role. 4K video, similar sensors, same kind of design as far as the guts go. But the G7 was a much larger camera, and it was actually incredibly lightweight. And oddly enough, that turned off a lot of people. They thought that the G7 was poorly built and cheaply made. It certainly wasn't, but it was very lightweight and easy to pack. And the first time I picked up the GX85, I noticed this is a really heavy camera, especially for its size. It's going to have some bonuses. The camera's going to be nice and stable, and I've been able to shoot some pretty good slow shutter speed stuff here so far. But at the same time, I really kind of like a lightweight, travel-y kind of camera, which this would do really well at. And this has got some weight to it. You may or may not like it. You're going to have to get in your hands to figure that out. So I'm taking a picture here of, 1900s painkiller, which I'm assuming is cocaine. And using the viewfinder here, the EVF, it's a 2.7 million dot EVF. Now that's incredibly high resolution. That sounds really great, and it certainly is sharp, but one complaint I do have about Panasonics, and again myself, I use a GM5. They're somewhat small viewfinders, so even with this high res, getting your eye in there, your eye relief is not great. With glasses, you'd have some problems, and even though it's sharp, it just doesn't blow you away. I mean, it's okay, it's usable, but the screen on the back is so nice. I'm going to still use that for most of my stuff. All right, so we're here in the tack shop, and I mean, maybe even through YouTube, you can just smell it, just the leather smell, it's amazing. All the leather engraving tools here, just a cool part of history and, the whole equestrian kind of world. And I know I brought the 100 to 400, and I will get some landscape shots. I will get some wildlife shots if I can, I promise. But I'm just loving the 30mm macro because this whole ranch just has so many of these amazing little details to shoot with. Now the GX85 has got a brand new shutter mechanism here. It's actually using dual solenoids as opposed to a classic spring. And what this is promising is a more stable platform. And I would agree with that definitely. They really have hit the mark here. With the heavier weight of the camera and this new shutter mechanism and the image stabilization being 5-axis, I'm actually having really good success getting good handheld shots of small details with the macro lens in honestly very challenging light. So overall, I think if you like to do these kind of detail shots, you find yourself in this situation, you are going to love this camera's shutter mechanism. I'm shooting here at 1/8 of a second, and again, it's doing a great job. So playing with the camera here, the overall handling that I'm getting from it. Now first off, the grip. Everybody really liked the GX8 grip, but they thought it was ugly. So this one's definitely smaller. It's a little bit uncomfortable considering the weight of this camera. Although to its credit, your thumb pad is going to basically cover all of these buttons, and yet they don't get pressed in or anything like that. So that's quite nice. You got to hold on to it fairly tightly. You get a little bit of strain. As far as customizability goes, lots of function buttons on the camera. Now as usual, they're already dedicated to things like LVF, 4K photo mode, post focus, that kind of stuff. And you can change those, but the iconography is going to be off for you. Keep in mind though, you always have up to function 9 in the touch menu. I really like that. I've been playing with the tripod a lot and I want to turn the stabilizer on and off. It's not in the quick menu, but I can simply touch my screen. I've already mapped it, push that on and off, nice and quick and easy. The only other thing I want to say about the overall look of the GX85, and this is kind of a complaint, frankly, Panasonic have a very minimalistic design aesthetic. It's functional, it's pragmatic, it's small, but it just doesn't really wow anybody. You look at these cameras visually and you're like, it's okay. You got companies like Fuji that are really knocking out of the park, with these beautiful looking cameras. And the Olympus Pen F, we talked about that. I love the look of it. And here we're just getting something very simple, very minimalist, but very uninspiring. All right, so I'm just kneeling here by the shores of Pekisco Creek. And this is one of the spawning creeks for the Bow River, and we get huge fish that swim up here from our hometown in Calgary, and I love fishing this in the summertime. It's just gorgeous. And I'm shooting this because we got the bridge here at Bar U, and I'm getting some shadows under there. I'm taking some shots here in RAW. I'm going to test the dynamic range of the GX85 sensor, but keep in mind, this is basically the G7 sensor without an anti-aliasing filter, and although GX85's meter perfectly. They just do such a great job. And I've got my live histogram there. You never get great dynamic range out of these sensors. In fact, I think the 1-inch stacked chip from Sony does a better job with dynamic range by far. All right, so we're hiding out in the root cellar. I mean, number one, this is a good way to get out of the heat. It's way cooler down here, but it's also a good place to test the low light autofocusing. And you know, we talk about the DFD system being so quick, and it really is. It's accurate and it's lightning fast. But when the light levels drop, it becomes pretty much like any other camera out there. It does have issues. I mean, here we go. I'll show you guys. Right now, I'm gonna focus. Oh, it's hunting, and then it went there. Normally, it only does it once or twice, but it still hasn't been able to confirm focus. So, you know, in low light situations, this is pretty extreme. Do expect that the Panasonic is gonna have issues like anything else. I know this is GX85 review, not really 100 to 400 review, but I've got some good things to say about this 100 to 400 and then some bad stuff too. So the good stuff first, and actually in conjunction with the GX85, having that extra weight in the body, you don't have anything to hold on to still, but it does balance it quite nice. The 100 to 400, sharp from what I can see, beautiful image quality, and the stabilizer along with the body is just dead solid. This is a really nice package for shooting long distances. The zoom on this lens is absolute garbage. I don't know if they forgot to lubricate the inside or polish the barrels, or if they're just cruel. I have no idea. You've got this lock switch that makes it even tougher to zoom. That's completely unnecessary because this lens is already impossible to zoom even when it's unlocked. It just takes a lot of force. It binds, it sticks. It's terrible. Now, frame rate on the GX85 is not amazingly impressive. I mean, you're getting 8 frames per second, but the buffer is relatively short. We're getting around 13 raw in a row. I mean, that runs out pretty quick, but that's okay because one of the features that I really like using now on this particular camera is the 4K photo mode. You know, we had it on the G7, we've had it on all the cameras since then, and it's fun, but I was really playing with the pre-burst setting where basically it's constantly recording. You hit the button and it catches the last second of action. And that was essential for capturing shots like this bird here taking off in flight. Couldn't have done it really any other way. It would have been intensely frustrating. I just watch him fly, hit the shutter, and I know that I've captured that. We get a lot of nice frames. So some exciting features when it comes to the 4K on this. Now, when it comes to image quality, this is what we're going to say about it. We had a chance to evaluate it, and first off, keep in mind that the GX85 is the first camera that they've used that has the 16 megapixel sensor, but without the anti-aliasing filter, and the Venus engine has been designed to counteract moire and false color and the like. When we did some tests, we shot against the GX8, which has got the 20 megapixel sensor, their highest resolution to date. And actually, what we're seeing with resolution is, although it's 4 megapixels less, the lack of the aliasing filter gives us enhanced sharpness, and we could see almost no difference here in between these two files. Basically the same amount of detail. Now, when it came to low light performance, looking at that as well, because it's a few more megapixels on the GX8, we expect to get a little bit more noise, and I guess if I had to give an edge, I'd say that the GX85 has slightly better low light performance, maybe a little bit less softness. But honestly, guys, looking at the files side by side, they're basically identical, and actually very decent with the Micro Four Thirds sensor. Overall, you're going to like the image quality, you're going to like the sharpness, and it feels like you're getting a higher end sensor, even though it's still that 16 megapixels.
Hey guys, it's Jordan the Video Guy, and I'm walking towards the Panasonic GX85 while Chris walks backwards because we really want to test the big headline feature on this camera, which is the new stabilizing system. So it's using 2 axes from the lens and then handling the other 3 axes in body, and it's doing a really good job actually. I'd say it's quite a bit better than the Sony system that we see on their high-end cameras. Actually really in line with what Olympus is doing, which has always been the gold standard for in-body stabilization. Works really well. Now, mostly with controlled movements. Here you can see when you're walking with it, it kind of looks like someone using a glide cam for the first time. They don't know exactly how to do it, but it's certainly better than hand holding it. Where it really excels is when you're just doing manual pans, manual tilts, making small movements. It looks really beautiful, almost like a gimbal. Now the other thing, we're recording separate sound because there's no mic jack on this thing, and the built-in audio is absolutely terrible. So Panasonic's kind of got you in a bind. You can get the G7 if you want the microphone jack, the Cine D, Cine V profiles, or you can get the GX85 for the great video stabilization. But if you want both of those together, you're gonna have to wait for the GH5, and God knows when that thing's coming. It's already a little bit overdue, so we're just gonna keep our fingers crossed. So here we're doing a bit more of a locked off shot, and Chris is still hand holding. Actually, all of our GX85 samples will be shot handheld in this. And you can see it's doing a great job. This is where that stabilizer really excels, is when you're trying to hold the thing steady. It does a wonderful job. What it doesn't do a wonderful job with is big highlights like we're getting from this window here. That's where having Cine D would have been really sweet, or, you know, God, just to dream upon a dream, maybe Vlog. But anything just to help with these high contrast shots. All we have are standard photo profiles, and they're not great for this kind of shooting. Of course, the GX85 is a 4K camera, as all of Panasonic's new stuff has been. And one thing I love with 4K is the option to digitally pan or crop afterwards in post. And it's really interesting. They give you that option right in the camera. So you can choose, take 20 seconds or 40 seconds to do a digital pan, a digital zoom in the shot. You've got that option. Now, of course, this is for people who aren't experienced in video editing to do that themselves. And that's really what this camera is built for. It's for amateurs who want to shoot really good looking footage with don't care about sound at all, I suppose. And get compelling results from it. It's a great home video camera for that, and it's really easy to use.
Well, folks, that just about wraps it up. But the first thing I'd like to do is just thank the Bayou Ranch National Historic Site for letting us shoot out here. This is just a beautiful part of Alberta's history, and actually most of the people that have been visiting here are actually from all over the world. So if you're a viewer and you're in Alberta, come down here and check it out. You'll love it. I love shooting in all the shops and all the buildings, and it doesn't feel like a museum at all. It literally feels like a working ranch back at the turn of the century. So many things to photograph out here. Now, as for the GX85, when a lot of people first picked this camera up, their first impression was very good. They really liked it. And then when I picked it up, I thought, oh, this is too heavy. I'm not going to enjoy it. But I actually got used to the weight. It's a very stable platform. I love the image quality. Taking out the filter has been a very good success here. The camera's stable, it's compact, and it's easy to use. The buffer rate's not going to blow anybody away, and we don't have any weather sealing or anything like that, but this is a very interesting addition to the line. Now, of course, the GX85 is being touted online as a cool video camera. I love the image quality, I love the stabilization, but the lack of the headphone jack and mic input, that's just going to be a big killer of anybody wanting to use this for vlogging or any sort of cinematography, and that's a real shame because that really does castrate this camera for the videographers. So who's the GX85 for? I'm going to buck the trend that's on the internet. I actually don't think this is really for videographers. I think missing the mic input is just going to be a huge loss. I think this is a great stills camera, and I use Micro Four Thirds myself, even though for the same price point, you can get Sonys and Fujis with bigger sensors, better low light performance, yada, yada, yada. I use Micro Four Thirds because I like the smaller system, I like the smaller lenses, and I like the portability. And frankly, the GX85 for a still photographer gives you a lot of wins. You're getting great stability, you're getting a great shutter that's super stable, you're getting small compact design, you're also getting some of the best autofocusing out there. I mean, this camera was fantastic with the 100 to 400 for stability. It was fantastic handheld for macro. We had so many small objects that I was shooting around here. It did a great job even in lower light situations, and I think the image quality is still good enough. That new sensor with the lack of filter, they did a good job there. So I think if you're primarily a still shooter and you want some excellent video quality for family stuff and get-togethers, perfect choice right here with the GX85. Now don't forget, check us out on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. We got 2 channels there to watch. Check out our photos from today. And don't forget that we're running our contest. This is episode 4 of our Fuji S5 Pro giveaway. So I hope you're keeping your eyes open. That vintage camera's in there, and if you don't recognize it, use the time code. Enter it in the form below. All the details you need are below. Every entry that you put in gets you closer to a Fuji S5 Pro of your own. All right, guys, we're gonna see you soon. Thanks so much.